Some people are really fucking stupid. Did you ever notice that? How many really stupid people you run into during the day? God damn, there's a lot of stupid bastards walking around. Carry a little pad and pencil with you. You wind up with 30 or 40 names by the end of the day. Look at it this way. Think of how stupid the average person is, and then realize half of them are stupider than that. And it doesn't take you very long to spot one of them, does it? Take you about 8 seconds. You'll be listening to some guy. You say, this guy is fucking stupid.
You can say what you want about this country, and I love this place. I love the freedoms we used to have. I love it. I love that. You know? I love it when it didn't take a fucking catastrophe to get us to care for one another. I love the fact that we got some dumb-ass motherfuckers floating around this country. Dumb-ass motherfuckers, you know? These people are efficient, professional, compulsive consumers. It's their civic duty, consumption. It's the new national pastime. Fuck baseball. It's consumption. The only true, lasting American value that's left, buying things. Buying things. People spending money they don't have on things they don't need. Money they don't have on things they don't need. So they can max out their credit cards and spend the rest of their lives paying 18% interest on something that costs $12.50. And they didn't like it when they got it home anyway. Not too bright, folks. Not too fucking bright. But if you talk to one of them about this, if you isolate one of them, you sit them down rationally, and you talk to them about the low IQs and the dumb behavior and the bad decisions, right away they start talking about education. That's the big answer to everything. Education. They say we need more money for education. We need more books, more teachers, more classrooms, more schools. We need more testing for the kids. You say to them, well, you know, we've tried all of that, and the kids still can't pass the test. You say, don't you worry about that. We're going to lower the passing grades. And that's what they do in a lot of these schools now. They lower the passing grades so more kids can pass. More kids pass, the school looks good, everybody's happy, the IQ of the country slips another 2 or 3 points, and pretty soon all you'll need to get into college is a fucking pencil. Got a pencil? Get the fuck in there. It's physics. Then everyone wonders why 17 other countries graduate more scientists than we do. They living in a coast-to-coast shopping mall? Well, they think it's just fucking dandy. They think it is cool as can be, because Americans love the mall. They love the mall. That's where they get to satisfy their 2 most prominent addictions at the same time. Shopping and eating. Millions of semi-conscious Americans, day after day, shuffling through the malls, shopping and eating, especially eating. Americans love to eat. They are fatally attracted to the slow death of fast food. Folks, living in this country, you're bound to know that every time you're exposed to advertising, you realize once again that America's leading will be a big industry. America's most profitable business is still the manufacture, packaging, distribution, and marketing of bullshit. High quality, grade A, prime cut, pure American bullshit. And the sad part is that most people seem to have been indoctrinated to believe that bullshit only comes from certain places, certain sources. Advertising, politics, salesmen, not true. Bullshit is everywhere. Bullshit is rampant. Parents are full of shit, teachers are full of shit, clergymen are full of shit, and law enforcement people are full of shit. This entire country is completely full of shit, and always has been. From the Declaration of Independence to the Constitution to the Star-Spangled Banner, it's still nothing more than one big steaming pile of red, white, and blue all-American bullshit. Because think of how we started. Think of that. This country was founded by a group of slave owners who told us all men are created equal. Oh yeah, all men, except for Indians and niggers and women, right? Always like to use that authentic American language. This was a small group of unelected white male land-holding slave owners who also suggested their class be the only one allowed to vote. Now that is what's known as being stunningly and embarrassingly full of shit. And I think Americans really show their ignorance when they say they want their politicians to be honest. What are these fucking cretins talking about? Tell the truth. Don't be bullshitting people. Like I say, there's enough bullshit as it is. There's enough bullshit as it is. In fact, there's just enough. Did you know that? There's just enough bullshit to hold things together in this country. Bullshit is the glue that binds us as a nation. Where would we be without our safe, familiar American bullshit? Land of the free, home of the brave, the American dream. All men are equal, justice is blind, the press is free, your vote counts. Business is honest, the good guys win, the police are on your side, God is watching you, your standard of living will never decline, and everything is going to be just fine. The official national bullshit story. I call it the American okey doke. That's what they do with that kind of stuff. They put it in the heads of kids. They pound it in there because they know kids are too young to be able to mount a sophisticated argument against these kind of ideas. And so kids, and up to a certain age, by the way, kids are going to believe everything a grown-up tells them, everything. So kids never learn to question things. Nobody questions things in this country anymore. Nobody questions things. Why? People are too fat and happy. People are way too fucking prosperous for their own good. Everyone's got a cell phone that'll make pancakes and rub their balls now, you know? So nobody wants to rock the boat, and people just gizmo. Americans have been silenced, bought off, and silenced by gizmos and toys, and as a result, no one's ever learned to question things. No one questions things in this country anymore. No one questions things. Here, war, disease, death, destruction, hunger, filth, poverty, torture, crime, corruption, and the ice-capades. Something is definitely wrong. Things that are pissing me off, because I don't have pet peeves. I have major psychotic fucking hatreds, okay? And it makes the world a lot easier to sort out. You know, it would be great for a guy like me just to be in a coma. Huh? Wouldn't that be great? Nothing to do all day. You just crap out and breathe through a fucking tube. They feed you through a tube. There's nothing to do. Whoa, you talk about being a couch potato, that's it, man. No phone calls coming in, nobody dropping by unexpectedly. And if they do drop by, you're completely unaware of it. Because you're in a fucking coma, and you're practically clinically dead. And you don't have to listen to their stupid shit. Can be blamed on the baby boomers. Something else I'm a little tired of hearing about. The baby boomers. Whiny, narcissistic, self-indulgent people with a simple philosophy. Give me it, it's mine! Give me that, it's mine! They're staring down the barrel of middle-aged burnout, and they don't like it. They don't like it, so they've turned self-righteous. And they want to make things hard on younger people. They tell them abstain from sex, say no to drugs. As for the rock and roll, they sold that for television commercials a long time ago. So they could buy pasta machines and Stairmasters and soybean futures. Soybean futures. They're cold, bloodless people. It's in their slogans, it's in their rhetoric. No pain, no gain. Just do it. Life is short, play hard. Shit happens, deal with it. Get a life. These people went from do your own thing to just say no. They went from love is all you need to whoever winds up with the most toys wins. And they went from cocaine to Rogaine. Airport security is a stupid idea, it's a waste of money, and it's only there for one reason, to make white people feel safe. That's all. The illusion, the feeling and illusion of safety. Because the authorities know they can't make an airplane completely safe. Too many people have access. You'll notice the drug smugglers don't seem to have a lot of trouble getting their little packages on board, do they? No, and God bless them too. As far as I'm concerned, all of this airport security, all the searches, the screenings, the cameras, the questions, it's just one more way of reducing your liberty and reminding you that they can fuck with you anytime they want. As long as you put up with it. As long as you put up with it. Which means, of course, anytime they want.
because that's what Americans do now. They're always willing to trade away a little of their freedom in exchange for the feeling, the illusion of security. What we have now is a completely neurotic population obsessed with security and safety and crime and drugs and cleanliness and hygiene and germs. There's another thing, germs. Where did this sudden fear of germs come from in this country? Have you noticed this? The media constantly running stories about all the latest infections, salmonella, E. coli, hantavirus, bird flu, and Americans they panic easily, so now everybody's running around scrubbing this and spraying that and overcooking their food and repeatedly washing their hands, trying to avoid all contact with germs. It's ridiculous, and it goes to ridiculous lengths.
Don't look for it. Be happy with what you got. Because the owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now. The real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets. And they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest. That's right. They don't want people who are smart enough to sit around the kitchen table and figure out how badly they're getting fucked by a system that threw them overboard 30 fucking years ago. They don't want that. You know what they want? They want obedient workers. Obedient workers. People who are just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork and just dumb enough to passively accept all these increasingly shittier jobs with the lower pay, the longer hours, the reduced benefits, the end of overtime, and the vanishing pension that disappears the minute you go to collect it. And now they're coming for your Social Security money. They want your fucking retirement money. They want it back so they can give it to their criminal friends on Wall Street. And you know something? They'll get it. They'll get it all from you sooner or later because they own this fucking place. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. You and I are not in the big club. And by the way, it's the same big club they use to beat you over the head with all day long when they tell you what to believe. All day long, beating you over the head in their media, telling you what to believe, what to think, and what to buy. The table is tilted, folks. The game is rigged. And nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. Good, honest, hard-working people, white collar, blue collar, doesn't matter what color shirt you have on, about you. They don't care about you at all, at all, at all. Man,
The public sucks. Fuck hope. Fuck hope. Because if it's really just the fault of these politicians, then where are all the other bright people of conscience? Where are all the bright, honest, intelligent Americans ready to step in and save the nation and lead the way? We don't have people like that in this country. Everybody's at the mall, scratching his ass, picking his nose, taking his credit card out of his fanny pack and buying a pair of sneakers with lights in them. So I have solved this little political dilemma for myself in a very simple way. On election day, I stay home. I don't vote. Fuck them. Fuck them. I don't vote. Two reasons I don't vote. First of all, it's meaningless. This country was bought and sold and paid for a long time ago. The shit they shuffle around every 4 years doesn't mean a fucking thing. And secondly, I don't vote because I believe if you vote, you have no right to complain. And nobody seems to notice, nobody seems to care. That's what the owners count on, the fact that Americans will probably remain willfully ignorant of the big red, white, and blue dick that's being jammed up their assholes every day. Because the owners of this country know the truth. It's called the American dream, because you have to be asleep to believe it. Look at things anymore, sort of take them in, maybe even remember them.
Is that such a strange notion? Does experience have to be documented and brought home and saved on a shelf? And do people really watch this shit? Are people's lives so bankrupt they sit at home looking at things they already did?
The self-esteem movement began in 1970, and I'm happy to say it has been a complete failure. Because studies have repeatedly shown that having high self-esteem does not improve grades, does not improve career achievement, it does not even lower the use of alcohol, and most certainly does not reduce the incidence of violence of any sort. Because as it turns out, extremely aggressive, violent people think very highly of themselves. Imagine that. Sociopaths have high self-esteem. Who would have thunk, huh? I love when this kind of thing happens. I love when these politically correct ideas crash and burn and wind up in the shithouse.
Language. Tell you what you can say and what you can't say. Government wants to tell you some things you can't say because they're against the law. Or you can't say this because it's against the regulation. Or here's something you can't say because it's a secret. You can't tell him that because he's not cleared to know that. Government wants to control information and control language because that's the way you control thought. And basically that's the game they're in. Same with religion. Religion is nothing but mind control. Religion is just trying to control your mind, control your thoughts. So they're going to tell you some things you shouldn't say because they're sins. And besides telling you things you shouldn't say, religion's going to suggest to you some things you ought to be saying. Here's something you ought to say first thing when you wake up in the morning. Here's something you ought to say just before you go to sleep at night. Here's something we always say on the third Wednesday in April after the first full moon in spring at 4 o'clock when the bells ring. Religion is always suggesting things you ought to be saying. Same with political groups of all kinds. Political activists, anti-bias groups, special interest groups are going to suggest the correct political vocabulary, the way you ought to be saying things, and that's where the feminists come in. Now, as I said, I got nothing against the feminists. In fact, I happen to agree with most of the feminist philosophy I have read. I agree, for instance, that for the most part, men are vain, ignorant, greedy, brutal assholes who've just about ruined this planet. Who've just about ruined this planet because they're afraid someone might have a bigger dick out there somewhere.
You know what they ought to do? They ought to have 2 new requirements for being on the police. Intelligence and decency. You never can tell. It might just work. It certainly hasn't been tried yet. It's one of these things we tell ourselves so we'll feel noble. Life is sacred. Makes you feel noble. Well, let me ask you this. If everything that ever lived is dead, and everything alive is going to die, where does the sacred part come in? I'm having trouble with that. Because, I mean, even with this stuff we preach about, chickens and pigs, 'cause we're hungry. Pheasants and quails, 'cause it's fun. And we're hungry. And people, we kill people because they're pests. And it's fun. I'm looking for. Conservatives want live babies so they can raise them to be dead soldiers. Pro-life. Pro-life. These people aren't pro-life. They're killing doctors. What kind of pro-life is that? What, they'll do anything they can to save a fetus, but if it grows up to be a doctor, they just might have to kill it? They're not pro-life. You know what they are? They're anti-woman. Simple as it gets. Anti-woman. They don't like them. The children. Help the children. What about the children? Save the children. You know what I say? Fuck the children. Fuck them. They're getting entirely too much attention. And I know what you're thinking. You say, Jesus, he's not going to attack children, is he? Yes, he is. He's going to attack children. And remember, this is Mr. Conductor talking. I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about. And I also know all you single dads and soccer moms who think you're such fucking heroes aren't going to like this, but somebody's got to tell you for your own good, your children are overrated and overvalued. You've turned them into little cult objects. You have a child fetish, and it's not healthy. And don't give me that weak shit. Well, I love my children. Fuck you. Everybody loves their children. Doesn't make you special.
Swearing on the Bible is just one more way of controlling people and keeping them in line, and it's one more thing that holds us back as a species. Here's one more item for you, the last in our civics book, rights. Boy, everyone in this country is always running around yammering about their fucking rights. I have a right, you have no right, we have a right, they don't have a right. Folks, I hate to spoil your fun, but there's no such thing as rights, okay? They're imaginary. We made them up, like the boogeyman. The Three Little Pigs, Pinocchio, Mother Goose, shit like that. Rights are an idea. They're just imaginary. They're a cute idea. Cute. But that's all. Cute and fictional. But if you think you do have rights, let me ask you this. Where do they come from? People say, well, they come from God. They're God-given rights. Oh, fuck, here we go again. Here we go again. The God excuse. The last refuge of a man with no answers and no argument. It came from God. Anything we can't describe must have come from God. Personally, folks, I believe that if your rights came from God, He would have given you the right to some food every day, and He would have given you the right to a roof over your head. God would have been looking out for you. God would have been looking out for you. You know that?
Pray for anything, but what about the divine plan? Remember that? The divine plan. Long time ago, God made a divine plan. Gave it a lot of thought, decided it was a good plan, put it into practice. And for billions and billions of years, the divine plan has been doing just fine. Now you come along and pray for something. Well, suppose the thing you want isn't in God's divine plan. What do you want Him to do? Change His plan? Just for you? Doesn't it seem a little arrogant? It's a divine plan. What's the use of being God if every rundown schmuck with a $2 prayer book can come along and fuck up your plan? And here's something else, another problem you might have. Suppose your prayers aren't answered. What do you say? Well, it's God's will. Thy will be done. Fine. But if it's God's will and He's going to do what He wants to anyway, why the fuck bother praying in the first place? Seems like a big waste of time to me. But in the bullshit department, a businessman can't hold a candle to a clergyman. Because I got to tell you the truth, folks. I got to tell you the truth. When it comes to bullshit, big time, major league bullshit, you have to stand in awe of the all-time champion of false promises and exaggerated claims, religion. No contest. No contest. Religion easily has the greatest bullshit story ever told. Think about it. Religion has actually convinced people that there's an invisible man living in the sky who watches everything you do every minute of every day. And the invisible man has a special list of 10 things he does not want you to do. And if you do any of these 10 things, he has a special place full of fire and smoke and burning and torture and anguish where he will send you. He loves you. He loves you and he needs money. He always needs money. He's all powerful, all perfect, all knowing, and all wise. Somehow, just can't handle money. Religion takes in billions of dollars, they pay no taxes, and they always need a little more. Now, you talk about a good bullshit story. Holy shit. Thank you. But, thank you. Thank you very much. But I want you to know something. This is sincere. I want you to know, when it comes to believing in God, I really tried. I really tried. I tried to believe that there is a God who created each of us in His own image and likeness, loves us very much, and keeps a close eye on things. I really tried to believe that, but I gotta tell you, the longer you live, the more you look around, the more you realize something is fucked up. Something is wrong here. War, disease, death, destruction, hunger, filth, poverty, torture, crime, corruption, and the ice-capades. Something is definitely wrong. This is not good work. If this is the best God can do, I am not impressed. Results like these do not belong on the resume of a supreme being. This is the kind of shit you'd expect from an office temp with a bad attitude. And just between you and me, in any decently run universe, this guy would have been out on his all-powerful ass a long time ago. And by the way, I say this guy because I firmly believe, looking at these results, that if there is a God, it has to be a man. No woman could or would ever fuck things up like this. If there is a God, if there is, I think most reasonable people might agree that he's at least incompetent and maybe, just maybe, doesn't give a shit. Doesn't give a shit, which I admire in a person and which would explain a lot of these bad results. So rather than be just another mindless religious robot, mindlessly and aimlessly and blindly believing that all of this is in the hands of some spooky, incompetent father figure who doesn't give a shit, I decided to look around for something else to worship, something I could really count on. And immediately, I thought of the sun. Happened like that. Overnight, I became a sun worshiper. Well, not overnight. You can't see the sun at night. The first thing the next morning, I became a sun worshiper. Several reasons. First of all, I can see the sun, okay? Yeah. Unlike some other gods I could mention, I can actually see the sun. I'm big on that. If I can see something, I don't know, kind of helps the credibility along, you know? So every day I can see the sun as it gives me everything I need: heat, light, food, flowers in the park, reflections on the lake, an occasional skin cancer, but hey, at least there are no crucifixions, and we're not setting people on fire simply because they don't agree with us. Sun worship is fairly simple. There's no mystery, no miracles, no pageantry, no one asks for money, there are no songs to learn, and we don't have a special building where we all gather once a week to compare clothing. And the best thing about the sun, it never tells me I'm unworthy. Doesn't tell me I'm a bad person who needs to be saved. Hadn't said an unkind word. Treats me fine. So I worship the sun. But I don't pray to the sun. Know why? I wouldn't presume on our friendship. It's not polite. I've often thought people treat God rather rudely, don't you? Asking trillions and trillions of prayers every day, asking and pleading and begging for favors. Do this, give me that, I need a new car, I want a better job. And most of this praying takes place on Sunday, his day off. It's not nice. And it's arrested for defecating in a mall. But most of all, you'd really like to fuck that hot little redhead down at the convenience store. You know, the one with the eye patch and the club foot, huh? Can you pray for that? I think you'd have to. And I say, fine, pray for anything you want. Pray for anything. But what about the divine plan? Remember that? The divine plan. Long time ago, God made a divine plan. Gave it a lot of thought, decided it was a good plan, put it into practice. And for billions and billions of years, the divine plan has been doing just fine. Now you come along and pray for something. Well, suppose the thing you want isn't in God's divine plan. What do you want him to do? Change his plan? Just for you? Doesn't it seem a little arrogant? It's a divine plan. What's the use of being God if every rundown schmuck with a $2 prayer book can come along and fuck up your plan? And here's something else, another problem you might have. Suppose your prayers aren't answered. What do you say? Well, it's God's will. Thy will be done. Fine, but if it's God's will and he's going to do what he wants to anyway, why the fuck bother praying in the first place? Seems like a big waste of time to me. Couldn't you just skip the praying part and go right to his will? It's all very confusing. So to get around a lot of this, I decided to worship the sun. But as I said, I don't pray to the sun. You know who I pray to? Joe Pesci. Joe Pesci. Joe Pesci. Two reasons. First of all, I think he's a good actor, okay? To me, that counts. Second, he looks like a guy who can get things done. Joe Pesci doesn't fuck around. Doesn't fuck around. In fact, Joe Pesci came through on a couple of things that God was having trouble with. For years, I asked God to do something about my noisy neighbor with the barking dog. Joe Pesci straightened that cocksucker out with one visit. It's amazing what you can accomplish with a simple baseball bat. So I've been praying to Joe for about a year now. And I noticed something. I noticed that all the prayers I used to offer to God and all the prayers I now offer to Joe Pesci are being answered at about the same 50% rate. Half the time I get what I want, half the time I don't. Same as God, 50-50. Same as the four-leaf clover and the horseshoe, the wishing well and the rabbit's foot. Same as the mojo man. Same as the voodoo lady who tells you your fortune by squeezing the goat's testicles. It's all the same, 50-50. So just pick your superstition, sit back, make a wish, and enjoy yourself. And for those of you who look to the Bible for moral lessons and literary qualities, I might suggest a couple of other stories for you. You might want to look at The Three Little Pigs. That's a good one. Has a nice, happy ending. I'm sure you'll like that. Then there's Little Red Riding Hood, although it does have that X-rated part where the big bad wolf actually eats the grandmother, which I didn't care for, by the way. And finally, I've often always drawn a great deal of moral comfort from Humpty Dumpty. The part I like the best, all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. That's because there is no Humpty Dumpty and there is no God. None, not one, no God, never was. In fact, I'm gonna put it this way. If there is a God, may he strike this audience dead. See, nothing happened. Nothing happened. Everybody's okay. All right? Tell you what. I'll raise the stakes. I'll raise the stakes a little bit. If there is a God, may he strike me dead. See? Nothing happened. Oh, wait. Got a little cramp in my leg. And my balls hurt. Plus, I'm blind. Oh, now I'm okay again. Must have been Joe Pesci, huh? God bless Joe Pesci. Thank you all very much. Joe bless you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
BJ's helps out because they offer same-day delivery. I know the value is still there because the price is.
The FCC, an appointed body, not elected, answerable only to the president, decided on its own that radio and television were the only two.
With all the stuff that's definitely you're listening to, that comedian was George Carlin. George Carlin's been around for ages. I used to watch him a lot. It's ironic how when you look back at things, so many things stay the same, yet so many things change. This was also one of my wife's favorite comedians as well, because she was also she was actually a psychology major, and we used to get into these long discussions about the psyche of people and the philosophy. This is a UCC class, and so I'm literally giving everybody a chance to definitely catch their breath. Want to start out with a little bit of humor. Wanted to kind of get you thinking. We're going to be talking about the UCC and how to apply it. I'm going to go through a couple of documents and do the best I can. I already done got some information from the powers that be because, they're like Debo. Y'all know what I'm finna say, They be like, shut the fuck up. You're talking too much. So I be quiet. But when they leave, I be talking again. And the reason why is because the truth cannot be contained. They do not want you to be conscious. They do not want you to know certain things. And they damn sure don't want you figuring out that your state is being robbed from within. The Uniform Commercial Code and the workbooks that I put out in Bitrix is designed to give you a point of reference. You know how many people I talk to who literally are sitting on the edge of their seat, biting their nails, trying to figure out exactly what they're going to do when it comes to their commercial capacity? Dealt with a creditor earlier today. Give you a prime example. Now, was dealing with this particular creditor, and they was, it was on behalf of one of the clients, and they're going through the whole rhetoric of, this, that, and the third, and this, that, and the third. And I was like, okay, now let me get this straight. Are you the creditor or are you actually the debtor? Because creditors, we should be working towards a resolution, not about who shot John. It's amazing when you start bringing accounting into the equation how everybody starts to get their mind right, especially when they know that they're in the wrong. What do I mean by that? Now, before I begin, before I go in, I'm gonna warn you. You need to go ahead and get your paper and pad, pencil, and if you're on this chat, you need to go ahead and start sending me some questions if you can, if you're on this chat, because I got a feeling they're gonna remove this broadcast off of YouTube. And this is the main reason why I don't really like putting certain things out on YouTube, because it's a public venue. I don't really do well in the public. You know, I'm a pretty reclusive personality. For those that know me, I don't really, I'm only doing this because, this is something that me and my wife started, and the last thing she told me before she transitioned was, remember where you came from. You need to remember that individuals need this information. And with that, as long as you guys keep doing what you're doing, I'm not going anywhere. But I want you to understand that this information is only for the ones that's going to utilize it. I cannot cast the pearls among the swine, and you need to be writing this down and share this information with as many people as you can while you can, because I know a lot of you guys aren't really prepared for what is about to take place. This next step, this next stage, if you will. And this is a stage. This is a stage. There are some things that are getting ready to happen that a lot of people are not prepared for. I can tell. So with that, I'm going to kind of I'm going to do a couple of things here. One, let's do this. I'm going to actually let me see here. Hopefully everybody who's actually inside of the Arbitrix link have gotten a hold of the actual manual. And if you haven't, you need to go to Bitrix and download the UCC workbook, because that's what I'm going to begin to come from with, the initial part of this particular class. If you don't have the UCC workbook, you need to get your hands on it. You need to go ahead and get on it, doggone it. And I posted this in Bitrix yesterday. PDF that begins with 4806567. This is the workbook that we're going to be coming from. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and load it up now. Like I said, share this with a friend so everybody can definitely do what they do. With that being said, I want you to kind of understand exactly where we're going with a lot of this. So let's see here. I'm gonna leave this page up, and matter of fact, keep listening, because if you listen long enough, you just might learn something.
That is. So that clip's important. We'll play that again when we come back. We've got so much more to get into, but I'm going to lay this out today. The Democrats are announcing the plan to hold America hostage, and they're going to work with the corporations to do it, but China is open for business. This is as clear as the nose on somebody's face that they're using a real virus that they hype up and exaggerate the death rates from to panic everyone and to have corporations set the precedent, then governors set the precedent, and Democrat cities set the precedent in a partisan move to shut things down, have their own political fever, as they've called it, or their own chemotherapy, their own radiation to get rid of the cancer that's Donald Trump. And that's what they're doing right now, is showing you by bankrupting you that they're the boss, and they think they can blame this on Trump. The key is blaming it on them and the Chi-Coms, and then it will blow up in their dirty, stinking faces like everything else they've tried, and they'll back off. But they'll launch something new. We should start asking, after this hoax is over, what will the new hoax be? I am not a scientist. I am not a doctor. I am not the author of the U.S. Biological Weapons Law and Treaty. But I have interviewed dozens and dozens of individuals of the highest caliber. And from day one, they have documented that this novel coronavirus is a man-made bioweapon with an HIV delivery system. Now, that said, the evidence shows that the death rate isn't even at 2%, but still that could overwhelm the hospitals. So I believe this is overall a real threat and a real crisis. But the hype surrounding it is completely weaponized. And the World Health Organization being in charge of this, and our media quoting them saying there is no treatment and there is no cure, is to create total panic. Now, obviously, there's not a cure for death. Obviously, there's not a cure for anything. But what we know from top famous virologists and thousands of studies is that zinc absolutely goes into the cells and does not let viruses get into the cells and replicate in the mitochondria. That's what a virus does. It goes in, plugs in, injects RNA into the cell, and then programs the DNA of the cell. That's just 101 6th grade information. That's undeniable. And so you type in zinc into a search engine and you don't see anything in the news about the fact that it is a massive frontline defense, a huge wall against the virus. That doesn't mean with compromised immune systems or other problems that it can't get over the wall, get in, replicate, and end up killing you. But it is extremely rare. Look at studies, just type in zinc and colon cancer. They've got studies where you basically almost can't get colon cancer. They can't even find cases of it. It's extremely rare if you have the zinc. They don't want you to know that. Why is that? Why do they want you to panic? Now, the way they deceive you is saying there's no known treatment or cure for this virus because it's new. And in the studies, zinc absolutely
DJ Food, Candy Music Quick Hit. Hit me on Twitter at DJ Food.
Blow it out of my mind, feeling like committing a crime. Get a lot for that. I won't snitch, I ain't dropping a dime. I'm a self-made hustler, top of the line. I'm representing my mans on the block. The chopper working.
Family. You could tell how close you are to me if my family knows your name and they know you. And so I'm greatly honored for everything that you're doing. You know what, brother? I wouldn't want to be anywhere than right here with the warriors that we all know, that we collaborate with, that we strategize with, and that we make ourselves available to. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. This is where I asked to be, and I definitely think that all of the warriors are in that same elk, a cut of that same cloth, and they intentionally wanted to be here. And one of the things I always say is that a soldier can never do what a warrior thinks, because a soldier takes orders. A warrior provides the path to sovereignty and self-determination. So that's who you are to me. And we know many brothers and sisters that are of like mind, like energy. This is why they come to the foundation. They listen, and they are actually enlightened and given an opportunity to question things because of your program and what you do, which is critical because the airways are sacred. The airways are completely sacred, because what it happens is that the airways is a frequency into the mind of the will of the people. And you orchestrate that so well, brother. And I was sitting back, just jamming to the intro, listening to it, and just realizing, man, this is where I want to be. And I want to be here with you and your listeners and the posse of people that we have, that you know of. And I'm looking forward to enduring it all together. because that is what breeds unity. That's what breeds strength. And there is no other stronger than the great will of the great creator that's been put into us as the image of perfection. And you definitely exemplify that, my brother.
Hey, all praises, to the creator. I appreciate those words though, man. Like, that was really, really heartfelt. I'm glad we see eye to eye when it comes to, getting this information out to the overall body of our people. Because as we both know, if you can just hear what we're saying, you will be interested. And if you can get interested and be dedicated and consistent, it will change your life. So, with that being said, I'm going to go into a couple of current events real quick, man.
Sure.
Just bear with me. And if you got anything, that you can throw in, because I just got 4 little articles that I pulled. First, from Reuters, China is going to slap an additional tariffs of $16 billion on U.S. goods. That's 25% on $16 billion worth of U.S. goods, from fuel to steel products to autos and medical equipment. The Chinese Commerce Ministry said, as the world's largest economies escalate their trade dispute. It's a war. We're in trade war. We've been in trade war territory. And, let's just leave it at that. If y'all want to check that out, it's China to slap additional tariffs on $16 billion of U.S. goods. That's on Reuters. I'm going to move forward. I thought this was funny. This is from a couple weeks ago. Trump flags and hats made in China are reportedly being held up at customs as trade war heats up. This cracks me up because, Trump is getting ready, to start his next campaign for presidency, Trump 2020, and to keep America great. Because apparently it's great now. He made it great. But, his campaign stuff is getting held up in customs due to the tariffs and the overall trade wars that are taking place right now. Newsworthy on Newsweek, Saudi Arabia orders 16,000 students to leave Canada amid escalating clash. Saudi Arabia has canceled the scholarships for 16,000 of its students studying in Canada, also ordering them to leave the country and find academic programs elsewhere. The move comes amid growing diplomatic row between the kingdom and the North American country, following comments by Canada's foreign minister that criticized Saudi Arabia's human rights record and called on Riyadh to release detained activists. Responding to the criticism, Saudi Arabia also cut diplomatic ties with Canada, closed an all-new trade and investment, and canceled flights via its national carrier to Toronto. Y'all should check that out. There's not only things escalating between the United States and Russia and China, Iran, and Syria, but there's things escalating with Canada and Saudi Arabia. And bottom line, if you look at it, it's, Eastern versus Western that I see being set up, and it just doesn't look good. China's UNIPEC, you can check that out on Newsweek, in regards to Saudi Arabia ordering 16,000 students out of Canada. Next up, Reuters. China's UNIPEC suspends imports of U.S. oil amid growing trade row, decided by sources. UNIPEC is the trading arm of the state oil major, Sinopec. It has suspended imports of crude oil from the United States due to the growing trade war between Washington and Beijing. 3 sources familiar with the situation.
Now, this is what's most ironic. A lot of you guys understand what's going on. This broadcast was actually done in 2018. This is how far in advance we have been on this information, because he's going to break down HR 5404. And this is to bring you back up to speed of all the things that have actually happened, so you know exactly. In order for you to know where you're going, you got to know where you came from. But check this out, because again, I'm trying to show you something if you just listen. Because if you listen long enough, you're going to what? You're going to learn something.
Did you ever notice that? How many really stupid people you run into during the day? God damn.
You can say what you want about this country, and I love this place. I love the freedoms we used to have. I love it. I love that. I love it when it didn't take a fucking catastrophe to get us to care for one another. I love the fact that we're on camera all the time from all angles. But you know what? You can say what you want about America, and I say I love this place. I wouldn't have it any other way. Wouldn't live in any other time in history and any other place. But say what you want about America, land of the free, home of the brave. We got some dumbass motherfuckers floating around this country. Dumbass motherfuckers. You know? These people are efficient, professional, compulsive consumers. It's their civic duty. Consumption. It's the new national pastime. Fuck baseball. It's consumption. The only true, lasting American value that's left, buying things. Buying things. People spending money they don't have on things they don't need. Money they don't have on things they don't need. So they can max out their credit cards and spend the rest of their lives paying 18% interest on something that costs $12.50. And they didn't like it when they got home anyway. Not too bright, folks. Not too fucking bright. But if you talk to one of them about this, if you isolate one of them, you sit them down rationally, you talk to them about the low IQs and the dumb behavior and the bad decisions, right away they start talking about education. That's the big answer to everything. Education. So we need more money for education. We need more books, more teachers, more classrooms, more schools. We need more testing for the kids. You say to them, well, you know, we've tried all of that, and the kids still can't pass the test. So don't you worry about that. We're going to lower the passing grades. That's what they do in a lot of these schools now. They lower the passing grades so more kids can pass. More kids pass, the school looks good, everybody's happy, the IQ of the country slips another 2 or 3 points, and pretty soon all you'll need to get into college is a fucking pencil. Get a pencil, get the fuck in there, it's physics.
Between the world's 2 largest economies. Y'all can check that out if you want to see more on that article. Also want to say numbers are in. Average home price is up over 5.5%. Average incomes are only up 2.8%. So y'all put that together. If the average home price is up 5.5%, but average incomes are only up 2.8%, and these are government numbers. Do I believe these numbers? No. These are the numbers that I, believe that they're willing to admit to. But if the price of purchasing a home has risen 5.5%, and your average income has only risen half of that, you can see what's happening to the middle class. It was quoted to have been said by someone dealing with student loans and how those are calculated, as well as how the housing market was projected, and affordability is at crisis levels. The engine of housing at this point is the first-time home buyer. So it's being let known that the engine of housing is the first-time home buyer. And, right now we're dealing with millennials who, from what I understand from the numbers, are buying less homes than the previous 2 generations. It might have been combined. New home sales are down 5.3% versus the expected 0.03%. So we might be looking at the housing market crash that might be taking place right now. And I guess, that's all I got. Go ahead, brother. That's all I got right now.
I just wanted to add to that. Very, very important. I'm glad you brought that last story up. There's an article that I would just add to this that kind of coincides to what you just said, is that the housing bubble and the housing collapse is about to start. And there was an article on July the 25th of 2018 that came out, and it was put out by BizNow, is the source. And the title of the article is Chinese Investors Do an About-Face Starting Selling U.S. Commercial Properties. Chinese investors pulled back from the United States commercial real estate in a very big way. In the second quarter, buying only $126.2 million worth of properties. At the same time, they sold a total of $1.3 billion worth of U.S. commercial real estate, according to the Real Capitalist Analyst data. Now, that is what is very, very important. See, what happens with a profit, the key to a profit is not where you sell, is where you enter the market. They entered, the Chinese investors entered the market when the overall housing prices were at the bottom. They know that they're at the top right now, and they know everything that's going to happen with the trade wars, with the currency wars, the trade wars that lead into a shooting war. And they know right now is the time to sell those properties. It's not just commercial real estate. They're selling not only commercial real estate, residential real estate. They're selling bonds. They're selling treasury notes. They're selling everything. And what they're doing is that they're taking the overall cash from that and they're repositioning it and re-leveraging it into something else, and other assets that are artificially suppressed right now that are going to explode. And they're going to be the ones that make that happen. And that's a lot about what tonight's show is about. And so I'm so glad that these were the articles that you chose, bro, because the last article is very, very significant to what's really going on and how it plays and how it can affect our everyday listeners and ourselves and our daily lives, because it is and it will further affect us going forward. So very, very important.
Yeah, absolutely. What I would like to say, and you'll love this, Brother David, the gold to housing ratio right now is 296.72 to 1.
Right.
And I do want to say for the, which is significant, I do want to say for the, the listeners, all the IBOR contracts that mature in 2021 and after have to be reset. And that's very significant on a level that I don't want to get into right now. I just want to get to the show at this point. So, unless you got any other current events that you want to speak on, brother, I feel like we can move forward.
Yeah, let's go ahead and move forward. But very important. I'm glad you read that, and this is what we need to be getting out to the people. And that overall ratio between gold and homes, it tells a very, very significant story, and history is playing itself out once again. So we're going to jump on that a little bit. What's that?
You want to touch on that, on how history is playing itself out again? Because
you know what? Because of the show and how important it is, it kind of plays into this. So I'll bring it back into this. I'll have that flow into tonight's show, so that it blends together really, really well. It's really a signal. It's a canary in a coal mine signal that an economic displacement, a huge economic displacement, is about to happen.
Right. Right. Exactly. So obviously, as y'all can tell, we got my good brother David of Thando Radio back with us once again. Tonight we're going to be discussing and going into HR 5404, what it means and what to know. So, we're going to talk about what it is, why does it matter, how does it affect you and your family, and what can you do to protect yourself and your family when this wealth transfer really starts picking up speed, because that's exactly what's going on. What one of the correlations I like to make with regards to how things are instituted from a control perspective. When you're talking about elite families or whatever, however you want to look at it, Illuminati, I don't care. But is a frog, if you put a frog in the water, and you heat it up over time, you make a flame, and you slowly heat the water up. That frog will sit there and it'll boil to death because it can't distinguish, that the water is being heated up. Because when it got in there, it was cool, and it's a cold-blooded animal, and this is how it works with these types of animals. But if you threw a frog into hot water, it would jump straight out because it would be able to tell the difference in temperature. Whereas a slow rise in temperature, the frog can't distinguish, and it will sit there and boil to death. I mean, it happens for real. You can try it if you want, but it's mean, ultimately, in my opinion. The same thing is with the masses or large amounts of people. Like large amounts of people in the psychology of, the masses or groups has been understood for a long time. And I can push back to just in this era, back to Edward Bernays, who was the nephew of Sigmund Freud, who was the father of corporate marketing in America, and then subsequently was hired by most all major corporations on how to sell products to the masses and how to make commercials and to understand the psychology mostly of the housewife, because back in that time, women predominantly stayed home and took care of the house, so they were watching television, but also, of men as well. So bottom line is that these policies are instituted over time. They're instituted slowly. And if you pay attention, you can see what's happened, but overall, the institution of these policies happens slowly. And that's how governments do it, because they understand the psychology of the mass. So when we're discussing this topic, obviously, and specific other topics, when it comes to, economic initiation of policies, you can read in, their documents. The International Monetary Fund says, and we went over this, I don't know if it was last week or a week before, but we went over this on, the foundation on how they want to decash society, and they didn't want to do it through decree, a governmental decree. They'd rather have it be adopted gradually and, have the banks and service providers and businesses institute and encourage this cashless society through fees imposed and so on and so forth, and have it trickle down slowly versus them, doing a legislative act, off the cuff, and people, it's too immediate. And humans are creatures of habit, so immediate differences in circumstances or position is very jarring to us, usually. So they understand this, and this is how they're doing this, and they're implementing it, and it's slow. So, there's a lot of people who can be called, whistleblowers or conspiracy theorists or whatever. We see this coming. We can't tell you exactly when it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. And bottom line is, it's best to be prepared. Prepare for the worst and, hope for the best. And, foundation, we're looking to make sure that you're prepared. So with that being said, how do you want to format this, brother? You want me just to read? Because the bill is short. You want to read the bill? Do you want to? I can let you. You could take over, because this is precious metals, and honestly, I defer to this brother, and I have no problem saying that. So I guess, brother David, how you want to? What we'll do? I'm just gonna hand it off to you. How does that?
Some people are really fucking stupid. Did you ever notice that? How many really stupid people you run into during the day? God damn, there's a lot of stupid bastards walking around. Carry a little pad and pencil with you. You wind up with 30 or 40 names by the end of the day. Look at it this way. Think of how stupid the average person is, and then realize half of them are stupider than that. And it doesn't take you very long to spot one of them, does it? Take you about 8 seconds. You'll be listening to some guy. You say, This guy is fucking stupid.
You can say what you want about this country, and I love this place. I love the freedoms we used to have. I love it. I love that. You know? I love it when it didn't take a fucking catastrophe to get us to care for one another. I love the fact that we're on camera all the time from all angles. But you know what? You can say what you want about America. And I say I love this place. I wouldn't have it any other way. Wouldn't live in any other time in history in any other place. But say what you want about America, land of the free, home of the brave. We got some dumb-ass motherfuckers floating around this country. Dumb-ass motherfuckers, you know? These people are efficient, professional, compulsive consumers. It's their civic duty, consumption. It's the new national pastime. Fuck baseball. It's consumption. The only true, lasting American value that's left, buying things. Buying things. People spending money they don't have on things they don't need. Money they don't have on things they don't need. So they can max out their credit cards and spend the rest of their lives paying 18% interest on something that costs $12.50. And they didn't like it when they got it home anyway. Not too bright, folks. Not too fucking bright. But if you talk to one of them about this, if you isolate one of them, you sit them down rationally, and you talk to them about the low IQs and the dumb behavior and the bad decisions, right away they start talking about education. That's the big answer to everything. Education. They say we need more money for education. We need more books, more teachers, more classrooms, more schools. We need more testing for the kids. You say to them, well, you know, we've tried all of that, and the kids still can't pass the test. He says, don't you worry about that. We're going to lower the passing grades. And that's what they do in a lot of these schools now. They lower the passing grades so more kids can pass. More kids pass, the school looks good, everybody's happy, the IQ of the country slips another 2 or 3 points, and pretty soon all you'll need to get into college is a fucking pencil. Got a pencil? Get the fuck in there. It's physics. Then everyone wonders why 17 other countries graduate more scientists than we do. Hey, living in a coast-to-coast shopping mall? Well, they think it's just fucking dandy. They think it is cool as can be because Americans love the mall. They love the mall. That's where they get to satisfy their 2 most prominent addictions at the same time. Shopping and eating. Millions of semi-conscious Americans day after day shuffling through the malls, shopping and eating, especially eating. Americans love to eat. They are fatally attracted to the slow death of fast food.
Folks, living in this country, you're bound to know that every time you're exposed to advertising, you realize once again that America's leading industry, America's most profitable business is still the manufacture, packaging, distribution, and marketing of bullshit. High quality, grade A, prime cut, pure American bullshit. And the sad part is that most people seem to have been indoctrinated to believe that bullshit only comes from certain places, certain sources. Advertising, politics, salesmen, not true. Bullshit is everywhere. Bullshit is rampant. Parents are full of shit, teachers are full of shit, clergymen are full of shit, and law enforcement people are full of shit. This entire country is completely full of shit. And always has been, from the Declaration of Independence to the Constitution to the Star-Spangled Banner. It's still nothing more than one big steaming pile of red, white, and blue all-American bullshit. Because think of how we started. Think of that. This country was founded by a group of slave owners who told us all men are created equal. Oh yeah, all men, except for Indians and niggers and women, right? Always like to use that authentic American language. This was a small group of unelected white male land-holding slave owners who also suggested their class be the only one allowed to vote. Now that is what's known as being stunningly and embarrassingly full of shit. And I think Americans really show their ignorance when they say they want their politicians to be honest. What are these fucking cretins talking about?
Tell the truth. Don't be bullshitting people. Like I say, there's enough bullshit as it is. There's enough bullshit as it is. In fact, there's just enough. Did you know that? There's just enough bullshit to hold things together in this country. Bullshit is the glue that binds us as a nation. Where would we be without our safe, familiar American bullshit? Land of the free, home of the brave, the American dream. All men are equal, justice is blind, the press is free, your vote counts. Business is honest. The good guys win. The police are on your side. God is watching you. Your standard of living will never decline. And everything is going to be just fine. The official national bullshit story. I call it the American okey doke. That's what they do with that kind of stuff. They put it in the heads of kids. They pound it in there because they know kids are too young to be able to mount a sophisticated argument against these kind of ideas. And so kids, and up to a certain age, by the way, kids are going to believe everything a grown-up tells them. Everything. So kids never learn to question things. Nobody questions things in this country anymore. Nobody questions things. Why? People are too fat and happy. People are way too fucking prosperous for their own good. Everyone's got a cell phone that'll make pancakes and rub their balls now, you know? So nobody wants to rock the boat. And people just gizmo. Americans have been silenced, bought off and silenced by gizmos and toys. And as a result, no one's ever learned to question things. No one questions things in this country anymore. No one questions things.
Here. War, disease, death, destruction, hunger, filth, poverty, torture, crime, corruption, and the ice-capades. Something is definitely wrong. Things that are pissing me off, because I don't have pet peeves. I have major psychotic fucking hatreds, okay? And it makes the world a lot easier to sort out.
You know, it would be great for a guy like me just to be in a coma. Huh? Wouldn't that be great? Nothing to do all day. You just crap out and breathe through a fucking tube. They feed you through a tube. There's nothing to do. Whoa, you talk about being a couch potato, that's it, man. No phone calls coming in, nobody dropping by unexpectedly. And if they do drop by, you're completely unaware of it. Because you're in a fucking coma, and you're practically clinically dead. And you don't have to listen to their stupid shit.
Can be blamed on the baby boomers. Something else I'm a little tired of hearing about. The baby boomers. Whiny, narcissistic, self-indulgent people with a simple philosophy. Give me it, it's mine! Give me that, it's mine! These people were given everything. Everything was handed to them. And they took it all. Took it all. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And they stayed loaded for 20 years and had a free ride. But now they're staring down the barrel of middle-age burnout. And they don't like it. They don't like it, so they've turned self-righteous. And they want to make things hard on younger people. They tell them abstain from sex, say no to drugs. As for the rock and roll, they sold that for television commercials a long time ago. So they could buy
what I want to do, and I just want to say, I'm glad that you used that analogy because it's so true. The way in which you control people is through a slow, methodical approach. And you do it through magic. Because the key to magic is not to trick you, but to make you believe. They make you think that you have freedom when actually what you have is subjugation and enslavement. And how you do that through energy. You control people's energy. When you control people's energy, you have all of their talents and ability at your full disposal, even to the point where they will deny themselves and will give their single life for your overall agenda. They sell out to what they've been indoctrinated to. They sell out to the boiling water. And so that's very, very true. And in today's show, we're going to jump into this now, very important show. And as we started off, we're going to take a look at House Resolution 5404. And what I want to do is I want to go down this line and talk about it, and give you an opportunity to see what's going on so that you can make the best decision for you and your family and in your neighborhood and your community and the overall collective good of everyone. Because you'll see something that's very telling here. You know, we give seminars throughout the country, and a lot of what's in this bill is what we talk about at our seminars. Because we try to give, and we've been talking about this for a very long time, because the system establishes control over a period of 1,000,000 years. They have their policies and their procedures to be methodically carried out. Their methods is always in the direction of their objectives. And by them having a long-term goals and plans, They put the general population that they're using those objectives against, that is actually the burden bearers of those objectives, they put them on 2 weeks or a month plan. And you can never defeat an enemy in war with a plan of 2 weeks and a month when they've been planning for millions of years. And I do mean millions. So what changes can happen quickly. It's the execution of your free will. And once you start questioning things, you can start to put things into an order that best serves your interests, your family's interests, your community's interests, the human species' interests. And HR 5404 is of great concern, but it's telling you so many different things that it's cluing you into how the system views you and uses us, how it views me, and it tries to use me. And that can only happen if I surrender, if I become a soldier to their cause and ignore the warrior that I was called to be. So let's take a look at this. Now, this HR 5404, you can go to congress.gov, and I suggest that you do that. So for those of you that, want to reference this, which is always good, you should. Let's go to the source, and it's going to be Congress. And right now, HR 5404 is in the House of Representatives. It was introduced on March the 22nd of 2018. It was introduced by Representative Alexander, a Republican out of West Virginia. Now, I'm a political atheist. I believe that they're all equally worthless. But what I do is I do listen to them for a reason, because a lot of times they'll give you clues and tell you things and reading between the lines on what the agenda is. They may not even know it because they're following the script. So let's go to this House Resolution 5404. And like I said, you could go to congress.gov and just put in HR 5404. Here it goes. HR 5404, to define the dollar as a fixed weight of gold. It's the 115th Congress, second session, to define the dollar as a fixed weight of gold. HR 5404 in the House of Representatives on March 22nd, 2018. Mr. Mooney of West Virginia introduced the following bill, which was referred to the Committee on Financial Services. A bill to define the dollar as a weight of gold, to be enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled. Section 1, findings. Here is where we're going to get to the meat, and it's very, very important. Finds the following. Number 1, the United States dollar has lost 30% of its purchasing power since 2000. 30% of the purchasing power since 2000. In this very first statement, they just let you know what they think about you and how they're using you. Here's why that's the case. Since 2000, the dollar has lost 30% of its purchasing power. Who relies on the dollar? And I'm going to tell you, it's not the corporation of the United States. It's you. And the reason why you depend on the dollar is because they have made it so that you have become addicted to it, thinking that it's money when it's not. Never has been, never will be. And it's losing purchasing power. What does that really mean? This is what it means. Is your overall talents and ability and labor force energy thing its value at any time, or is it gaining value? It always gains value. It's not losing value. But what they pay you in, what they give you in exchange for, you give them all of your energy and they give you cash, which is worthless and is losing purchasing power. Now you can see that they're robbing you. They're using an instrument, a debt instrument, and paying for debt to get an asset. This is why they call human resources at corporations, because the humans that work for them are a resource to them. Just like oil, there's natural resources and there's human resources. And they're using and controlling that. And by doing that, they're able to control and not own. They're able to dictate and have prosperity, and they pass out economic they pass out economic plight that will disenfranchise you ever having inheritance to pass on. Passing someone on your cash, leaving them your cash, is not an inheritance. You're passing on debt. It's just like you taking your car note and your mortgage and passing it to them. Here's the mortgage, here's the car note. The burden is now yours because it loses purchasing power. And I know that goes against everything that you've been taught in school that we've been domesticated to, because we've been taught those things in school and domesticated to them because they exploit us. We're basically giving up our priceless energy and receiving nothing in return. Would you work 100 hours, 200 hours, 40 hours for a leaf, a piece of paper? You would exchange all of that energy for a piece of paper. You would say, nowhere in the world. I'm not doing that for that. But that's exactly what we do when we get paid in debt, in cash. And they're telling you right here that it's losing purchasing power, meaning your overall value of your energy is being siphoned from you, and you're not benefiting from it at all. Ways and means. Our way of life provides for their means of life. It goes on. Number one, and 96% of its purchasing power since the end of the gold standard in 1913. Well, in actuality, it's lost. The dollar, which everybody thinks is cash, everybody thinks is money, has lost over 173% of its purchasing power when you really look at it. See, they create something and not have to give any energy to it. All they do is press a button. It's the printing press button or a computer button, and they can create debt because of the algorithms that they've created. And they do that. They don't have to give up anything. It's just like you. You can make someone give you everything that they own, and you give up nothing. Who's winning and who's losing? Very important. Number two, under the Federal Reserve, 2% inflation objectives. The dollar lost half of its purchasing power every generation of 35 years. They're telling you what they've already intended this to do. They knew this at the Bretton Woods decision. They knew this at the beginning of the financial of man's economy, because they knew, hey, how do we enslave people? We'll make them work for free. Well, how do we make them work for free? Well, you see this piece of paper, or you see this currency, or this or that is not worth anything, but we'll tell them it's worth everything in the world, and they'll do whatever we tell them. They'll give up everything. They'll give up their inheritance and their birthright. They'll kill, maim, and destroy each other in order to have what we have deemed and said is valuable, but we know is worthless. Goes on. Number three, American families need long-term price stability to meet their household spending needs, save money, and plan for retirement. They're basically telling you that there's going to be an economic collapse that is going to get rid of retirement, the savings of what you thought of savings of money, and your household. Quality of life and standard of living is going to be compromised. See, and they do this in their writing. Their grimoires and their writings tell a message, but it's not the one that they've taught us to read